Hey, how's everybody doing? Love that intro from Tape Damage. If you didn't catch it again, definitely catch it in a repeat. Waiting for a minute. Had to wait for Viva Barnes with my new occasional co-host, Mark Grobert, was on there tonight. This guy gives Barnes a run for his money in terms of pop culture and whatever else. You have Barnes kind of on the political legal side and just a walking encyclopedia of history, pop culture, and that. Then you have Grobert, who's on the I don't know what you'd call it. I mean, culture side, just culture, every unimaginable thing. I can't even keep up. It is just wonderful and fascinating. Putting them together is like magic. That's why I actually had them together a while back. I'll have Grobert on next week. Now, while I've got a minute to get with everybody, find out what everybody's drinking, I've been teasing a little bit. I have a major guest coming on tomorrow, and I'm really stoked. And I'm going to put out there, I put hints in my timeline on locals. So I want to see if anybody picked up who the guest might be from the hints that I put out there. And while I'm waiting for the chat to tell me who my guest is tomorrow, what is everybody having? And I'm at the old Pedestrian Raging Bitch, probably my favorite. Good standby. What are you guys having? Let's see. Lee Harvey is a Crown and Coke. Let me go scrolling back up here. KM wants to know when we will have Uncensored Time with me on Unstructured.locals and with Mark. I can't do a guest at the same time yet. I mean, I might be able to, but I have to figure out some technological tricks to do it because it's not built into Locals live streaming yet. But I will be doing more live streams. I'm always looking for things you want to talk about, things you want to see, and I definitely will be doing it. It's going to be exclusive to Locals members because I really want to do things that, add value. I mean, people are supporting me, and I really, really appreciate it. Kevin Bytel, if you even Bart seen the intro, yeah, Tape Damage. Get on it. No, I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Let's see. What do we have? First guess is McAfee. No, McAfee will not be my guest tomorrow. However, he is my guest on TikTok, which has been going crazy. Unbelievable. I don't even know what to think there. I've got one of the videos just going completely crazy. Come on, folks. I know you guys have some guests. Puppy Shark wants to know about the Zoom members chat. I don't know. Maybe that was so complex to accomplish. Tyler Durden, Michael Malice. No, it is not. It is not. And Chris Dreyer, it is not the dude who was just on Viva Fry. Ziggy, it is not Jordan Peterson. I wish. That wouldn't launch my channel into the next level automatically. Be very, very nice. I've actually reached out to Michaela Peterson. Never heard back, but I tried. I know that she's lined up on Sidebar, so maybe I'll get lucky sometime down the road. Nope. I put the clue in the Locals timeline. You guys, it's there. It's right under your nose. So let's see what everybody else is doing. I said Crown and Coke already for Lee Harvey. Guy Captain, yes. If you get Grobert and especially Grobert and Barnes, you're gonna have to watch a couple times and take notes. I can't even keep them. It's astounding. Kevin Johnson's drinking Shinerbach. Good beer. I've had that. Glenn Fittich from Tyler's Durden. Awesome. Jenny Finn with some tea. Very cool. Old Drill Sergeant mug root beer. All right, that's nice and old fashioned. Let's see. Harold Pastian, vanilla banana. We have Jefferson's Rye whiskey. All right, guys, come on. Donald Rumsfeld. Yeah, that would be funny. Wait, somebody said E. Clark says Britney Spears. No, the ghost of Epstein. I don't know. Maybe the ghost of Epstein's always with us, so that's possible. Tyler's Durden. Yeah, so it'd be nice if you join Locals. You know what? You could join for free. I mean, it doesn't, cost anything to at least follow some of the general things, and people are posting all the time, so please do. Somebody else said Grobert. No, it's not Grobert. Okay, you guys are killing me. I cannot believe that I left some obvious hints on my timeline, and you don't know who it is? Wow. I put 2 of his albums on the timeline at random with no words whatsoever, and nobody noticed who it was. Oh my goodness, folks. This is a huge guest, and I am really, really stoked to have him. He has single-handedly created a meaning wave genre. If you've heard the groovy tracks with Jordan Peterson and Jocko Willink and others kind of talking over a lo-fi hip-hop beat, this is him. It's Akira the Don. Amazing, amazing artist. He not only creates music, he literally has created an entire genre. And right, E. Clark, I still don't know who he is. Well, look it up, B. I promise you. I promise you. His stuff is amazing. He is moving people through music, and a lot of my channel, as you might know, is about influence and persuasion and reading people. Well, he is actually, through his music, hypnotizing people with positive imagery and messages. So it'll be amazing. I really, really, really look forward to sharing. I'm surprised that Tape Damage isn't here, but I know that Tape is definitely a fan because he uses the music all the time. But you know who is here? Somebody even more important. The munching Alison Morrow. How's it going, Alison? With the mute button. Very effective. Oh, goodness. You're muted. I don't know if she can see that. Oh, well, yes. Plugging the microphone in.
It was plugged in. It's just for some reason I have to keep plugging and unplugging it every time I turn my camera off. It's kind of annoying.
I see. Now, you're just coming off of doing a Rockfin live stream?
No, my babysitter had a pool accident, and anyway, she's a lifeguard. It's a long story, so she just got here.
Hey, no worries. No worries. All right. I was just bragging that I got Akira the Don as a guest tomorrow.
I saw that. I don't know who he is either, but that's awesome.
Everybody should just feel ashamed of themselves and just check it out then.
What's his real name? Like Roger?
I don't know. He is a title, not a name. He's a force. I actually give him I give him credit because he did not only created his thing, he's created an entire genre and not just mixes. So that's a definitely unique aspect. Let me see. Are we yellow yet? I haven't talked about anything controversial. Let me hit refresh. We're still green. Okay. Still green. Haven't hit the topics. Okay. Yes. Eva pointed out. Yes, this is true. Good Lawgic will actually be on the channel tonight, and he will also be on the channel tomorrow. He's debating Barnes over Giuliani and the suspension of Giuliani's license, whether it's good or bad, and I have to learn how to moderate a debate, which is interesting. So, good times. I, in general, do not like debates. I think I've talked to you about that, Alison, right?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, you were telling me that you're trying to figure out how to do it, but I mean, it's really just two people you're interviewing kind of at the same time, right? So you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's technically the rules, I guess, this time.
Unless it goes all Trump and Biden on you. Hopefully they...
and the humility has walked in the room. It's easy. Barnes wins.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they'll save some time. Debate over. Have a nice day. Okay, so I have this crazy idea that we're 14 minutes in and we probably want to talk about some news. I pimped out my guest long enough. And why can't I access this? Give me a break. Okay. So I thought this was a quite an interesting little display. I have mixed feelings about it because there's a part of me that likes a robust debate in public, but there's a part of me that goes, oh my God, what is wrong with these people? Are they completely nuts? They have introduced some legislation to an act to deal with trans athletes in Ohio. And the presentation of it did not go very well. The reception wasn't popular.
Wow.
Now, this is what led into it. Let me go and take out the mute. Basic, respectable.
Amend with Amendment 1594.
The chair has the amendment. The amendment appears to be in order. The representative may proceed.
The Save Women's Sports Act is a fairness issue for women to be able to achieve their dreams in athletics in our state, and is crucial to preserving women's rights and the integrity of women's and girls' sports. Across our country, female athletes are currently losing scholarships, opportunities, medals, education, and training opportunities. This amendment will require schools that are part of the OHSAA to designate separate teams for participants of the biological sex. No school interscholastic conference or organization that regulates interscholastics shall permit biological males to participate on athletic team or an athletic competition designated only for biological female participants.
All right, let's watch that again. It's just too classy. This makes me that makes me think of, I don't know if you remember, Ben Shapiro always made a joke about Bernie Sanders and wanting his pudding. I can't help but think of the guy, I want my pudding.
It reminds me of the opposite end of the spectrum because I have a toddler, but honestly, I've never seen her behave like that. Never. Not one time have I seen my toddler behave like that.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that you do not like it, but oh my God. I mean,
it's just funny that the same people who do this are also the same people who do this.
No, they don't do that. That's offensive. You got to do jazz hands.
I mean,
jazz hands.
Wow. Okay. That was pretty funny. The guy did, he did kind of look like he was in a high chair.
8 p.m. Eva. Anyway, oh my God. Sorry, I had to start out with that. And actually, there is a legitimate topic here, and I would love to get your opinion on it. And of course, why not get controversial? I want to make it go yellow as soon as possible. What are your thoughts on trans athletes?
What do I think about it personally?
Yeah.
Well, from a journalist standpoint, I think it's a travesty that it feels like it's one of those topics that you can't really discuss honestly without having one or another mob come after you. So I think a lot of journalists have been, pretty cowardly covering it. I think when it comes to somebody who's like had, I don't understand like who's the case in the Olympics right now that everybody's talking about, that who was like a man till
I forgot the name.
Man 35 and now woman at 43 or something, and has been living, basically had testosterone for like this person's entire life, and now all of a sudden is, setting records in the women's weightlifting event.
And by the way, that to me right there is the answer. I don't know. Have you ever watched Adam Carolla at all or heard him? I did years ago, and I kind of got the whole catalog, and I don't watch him or hear him much anymore, but he brought up a lot of great points. And one of them is talking about, for example, Cuba and the Berlin Wall. And one simple question is, what direction is everybody moving? And then you can kind of guess what the problem is. Let's just get real simple on it. So when we talk about trans athletes, How many female to male athletes are trying to break into the field?
How many female to male?
Yeah.
Athletes? Oh, you
Yeah.
mean meaning because they're not going to want to go up against a guy?
Well, they
I don't know the answer to that one.
but there may be some exceptions. From what I have seen yet, they're not really competitive versus a male to female trans like Fallon Fox, who literally busted out somebody's orbital socket in fighting. That gets scary. And then weightlifting.
Yeah.
And yes, you are right. It's like somebody who's born with testosterone and takes it like all the way up while they're in full development of everything. And then suddenly they stop. It's not
No,
quite the
I mean,
same.
no, I'm saying like a person who's naturally not taking testosterone, someone who's a biological male has grown up 35 years with testosterone as their main hormone, sex hormone. And now, all of a sudden, I don't know. I mean, that developed your body a certain way. I mean, I will just say one thing that I think is interesting, not just on this particular topic, but it brings up a point of alliances where I think we're going to start seeing fractions, and we already are, where say like originally maybe you would have had trans athletes and feminists, or you would have had trans people and feminists on the same side. And now you're starting to see as like, lines are being pushed on. So what does that really mean then? Like, how does society function in a world where you're, doing things very differently? You start seeing these fractures, in these old alliances. And so obviously you're seeing feminists now, or gosh, what's her name? The Harry Potter, not Harry Potter. Yes. The Harry Potter lady.
Oh, yeah.
And like everyone's coming after her because you're like seeing legitimate, like people who used to be kind of aligned now are like, well, wait a second, that's too far.
You're not going
and then
far enough.
They become each other's like enemies. Maybe not enemies is a strong word, but adversaries.
Let's talk about Title IX. What was Title IX about? Why did they create Title IX and say that you have to have equal representation of females in sports versus males to give the opportunity?
Right.
And this is where I have big issues with it. If a male converts, and there's studies on this, I mean, over and over, I'm not just, saying this stuff out of mind because I'm a misogynistic jerk, because that I'm sure I'll hear. The truth is there's a bone structure difference. There's a reason that you have Title IX. So if you're saying that it doesn't really matter and that it's nothing but a construct, then why don't you just chunk Title IX? I feel like you can't have
I think that's a good, I mean, that's a totally valid point. There are a lot of good points to be debated that are not often allowed to be debated because, you're called a transphobe or whatever else. And I just think that's really unfortunate for coverage of the issue, because I do think it's one of the many out there now that journalists just don't want to touch because they just don't want to deal with the fire. Even if there's a variety behind the scenes, even on like the trans side, which there is. Look at Blair White. I mean, she's somebody who would push back on that.
And the trans, like Blair White pushes back because you have the non-binary argument. And that's one that a lot of trans can't stand, because they're saying, no, we're not saying that it fluctuates. We're saying we're the wrong gender at birth.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying that there's like 20 genders or 20 pronouns or whatever. They're saying there's men and there's women. We're just wrongly placed. We're trying to be the other.
Another question go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go.
Well, I was going to say another question that I've had for almost 2 decades about this topic is, especially as it relates to feminism, and I don't even know what do you call transism? What do you call it? I don't know.
Woke?
No, but I mean like legitimate, like not necessarily woke, but somebody who's like, like a Blair White. Okay. Let's talk about her, because she's a conservative, trans female, male to female, and doesn't like a lot of the woke stuff. But what I think is interesting is that, the feminists were all like, you're not a woman just because you do all of these things. You wear a skirt, or, they wanted to break out of those. They burn their bras, right? Sure. But then for a trans person, it's like, I want to be a female by doing all these things that the feminists were like, but those aren't things that make you a female. So it's an interesting phenomenon. Like when I was in graduate school, I used to wonder how those sides were going to eventually get along because, what if one side's trying to say, but it's interesting because it kind of came back to bite them, the feminists that were like, that's not what makes a woman, right? And it's like, well, then what does make a woman? Hey, I'm a woman if I do all these things. Well, wait a second, no, you're not. You're not a woman if you do those things. So it's just an interesting phenomenon.
And I do wonder. I mean, it's become so prominent. Maybe there should be a third field, just to be realistic. Because I don't. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm old fashioned. I do believe in fairness. And yeah, somebody's pointing out Blair White was in Tom McDonald's latest video,
right?
Snowflake, which was amazing. That was funny because he was pushing buttons like crazy doing that because he was pushing everybody on the left, which he always does. But he was also pushing some people on the right who are not completely comfortable with the idea of trans either. So I love that. That's a truly subversive message, I think. Now, while we're on a topic, and
are you demonetized yet?
Not yet. It's I don't know. They're taking too long, but I'm sure it's coming soon because next one is something we talked about earlier, and I'm likely to piss everybody off here as well. So let's go ahead and talk about something. And I have my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Charlie Chester, Project Veritas, we're back at it. And here's a 2-minute little video.
It's fear. Fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in.
If it bleeds, it leads. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
Hey, we wanted to know if you're still working for CNN. Where are you headed right now? Possibly working for CNN?
If it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right?
Charlie, if you want to put this to bed, you can just tell us yes or no that you work for CNN. Why will you not answer any questions? I don't understand. You'll say a lot to an undercover reporter, but not to me.
Like COVID, gangbusters are rated, right? Which is why we constantly have the death.
I'm not going to keep going because I think everybody can get the point. Allison, you saw it. Mm-hmm. It pretty much continued the same way all the way through, right?
Yes.
This is my stance on it, and I'd love to hear what you think, but he's being bullied. You got the story from the guy. You got him. He was undercover, all of that. Why are you chasing him around? Yes, Dan Cooper. Eric is such a wimp. Gotcha. What more are you going to get out of him from this? It's a yes or no question. Is he working CNN? Really, who cares? You already got the story. Now all you're doing is just piling on. And if you look at the comment section, I feel like they're just piling on. It's like, what's the point here? Well, why are you, bothering the person? He's potentially lost his career. He might have lost a lot of things. I mean, what's going on?
I know the comment section is going to fry us for this, but I think that video had no news value. It was for clicks, and that guy's a nobody. I said it when I talked about that video the first time. Not that there's no value to understand what he was saying, when he was on his Tinder dates, but he's a nobody at CNN. And I just feel like if you're going to punch up. And, fine, go ambush. Like they had ambush videos with Sanjay Gupta and Wolf Blitzer and whatever else. Fine. But Charlie Chester, I mean, he's a nobody. So I don't care. Chasing Charlie Chester to his car and demanding the guy say something about what? That he got, exposed in these undercover videos. Like, listen, the dude's ruined. Like... It just doesn't offer any news value to me. It offers click value, but not news value.
Okay, and I'm not going to argue. Don says, Eric, if it's the other way around, trust me, they would not care about the sentiment. You're right. I don't care, though. Just because they're assholes and bullies doesn't mean that...
Yeah, everybody always plays that,
who cares? I mean...
Yeah, if you have standards, you have standards. It doesn't matter. Like, I wouldn't, the way I conduct myself and the way I conducted myself when I was in the news business or just in life, generally speaking, is like, what is the value of this? You know, not does my enemy do it? You know, it's like, that's the worst way to choose your actions. And,
Sure.
you know, just chasing that guy down, I don't get any value out of it.
Was it Nietzsche that look long enough into the abyss it'll look into yourself or something like that?
Yeah,
And
be careful when fighting monsters. Yeah, because when you look into the abyss looks back into you.
yeah, and
But you know,
sorry,
they,
I
they're fine if
just
they all
want
want
to
to
point
play.
that out.
Say that again.
No, I mean, we agree. I just want to point that out because I really, I want to point out when there's evil and things being compressed or rotten and all that. But if the other side's doing the bad thing too, that should be pointed out as well. I mean, leave the guy alone. You got your story. Let him just go to work. Let him try to
Big
recover his
Mammal
life.
says Charlie Chester sounds like a fake name. Mom hated him. I agree. It's a made for Project Veritas expose name, Charlie Chester.
Oh, I know. And Barnes
Keep your
asked that
hands
as
where we can
well.
see him, Charlie Chester.
Oh, okay. I've got one more quick story. And yeah, here we go. Okay, Barnes is going to support us here. What are the standards for chasing after people? Feels like quite typical by local media, stakeouts at home and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't agree with that either.
it's not, the standards would be like, what am I going to get out of this person? Like, why am I chasing this person? That's what I want to know. And I got nothing out of that video. In other words, like, I could put that out there, but like, what was the point? I just didn't get anything from that. And I don't know why we're still following that guy, asking like, well, you would talk to the guy was like, you would talk to an undercover reporter, but not us. He didn't think he was talking to an undercover reporter. He thought he was on a date.
Oh, so you thought you were going to get laid, huh? But you're not going to talk to me, my scruffies, come on.
That's a whole like issue I had with that entire series of videos anyway, to begin with, was, you know, what of Charlie Chester can I take of value for real? You know, is he a total douchebag who wants to get laid, or is he telling the truth, or is it somewhere in the middle or whatever? Like, I don't know. I have no clue. And he's a technical director too, which is a nobody. Now, I mean, no offense to technical directors, but they have no editorial decision-making skills. That's why I'm like, what? Not skills, sorry. They have no editorial decision-making power. And so, you know, they punch buttons in a control room. And that's why it's like, okay, if it's the mayor, it's Jeff Zucker, it's Wolf Blitzer. It's like, these people have control. Fine, chase them all around New York City if you want to. But go like chasing Charlie Chester, I don't know.
And I'm going to pull one more up, and I'm going to go quick story and then a guest. After all that CNN has done, I'm fine with the only reason being just to make Chester uncomfortable. You're making a human being uncomfortable who's low level, and it doesn't do a thing to CNN. They don't care.
A lot of the comments that I see in support of Project Veritas, it's obvious people are really angry at mainstream news, and I can understand why people don't trust mainstream news and they like to see them suffer. But I guess I still just approach it from the standards I used to have, which was like not emotional, just business. Like, what's the point? What am I going after? What's the value, and who am I holding accountable, and what kind of power do they have? And not waste your time on small fish. And I'm sorry, he's a small fish.
All right. Well, actually, I'm going to bring in our guests, and then we'll have our next story. We have good Lawgic, Joe Neerman.
How are you?
Half of the debate going on tomorrow night with Barnes, and I have to figure out how to moderate a debate. Barnes said that he won already, so I guess it's short.
You're a professional technical director, and Alison Morrow has the utmost respect for those, so you'll be great.
I'll put up crayons. Next, Joe Neerman says. All right, so, okay, this next story I do want to get out. Normally, I'd skip over and say, oh, cool, the guest here, let's move on. But this is important to everybody here. Court orders sites to keep data on users who rip YouTube videos. Now, I want everybody to know this because a lot of you probably get music and things like that off of YouTube. I do. But they're probably using websites for doing that, like YT to MP3 or whatever. I don't know the names.
I rip YouTube.
Right.
I was just going to say, I rip your video every time we do News with Booze. I rip your video.
Oh, there you go. I have software that does it locally on my computer, so I'm not leaving a trace, and I can also VPN in. But I'm just saying that. There you go. Don Gendro is ripping my video right now. You guys need to know this. This is going somewhere. Remember the RIAA, who became a toothless organization? Well, now they're going back at it. They're treating this like the modern Napster, and they've got a court to rule on their side to keep records of IP addresses and things of people who are technically downloading or converting videos for their own use. And this is a potential problem. Remember, there were settlements in the early '80s. I know I'm old, but like mothers getting a judgment of $20,000+ against her, or $40,000 or whatever. This is a very real deal. So my advice to you is, if you can come up with a little bit of money or whatever it is, or if you're going to use the site, you better get on a VPN. I don't have a VPN sponsor yet. I've been reached out to one. I wish I could drop one right now, but I don't have one. So whatever VPN works for you, consider doing that. This is a very real deal. And it is a genuine threat to, freedom of collecting your information and being able to watch it. And by the way, this is important to be able to rip YouTube videos or download them. Why? Because YouTube might just take it down. There might be an important video about a certain pandemic or something else, and you might want to save a copy because YouTube will take it down, or others will take it down. Am I yellow yet? And guess what? Now you have a copy that you can re-upload to another location, or you can share with your friends, and yes, we're yellow. Right on time. Thank you.
I'm here 2 minutes. I'm here 2 minutes, and you're yellow.
I could have been before you. I don't know, but you're never monetized, so you're in the red zone. Anyway,
well, that's what I was going to say. That's another reason that you want to rip YouTube videos, because the creator might be forced to rip them down. Otherwise, if they would lose monetization. So that's another reason that YouTube videos are ephemeral.
Absolutely. And I do recommend, by the way, everybody, if you see a video that you think is important and you can copy it down, please do, because everybody's squashing messages left and right. And you could be the one person to upload it to an alternative platform or something else and help keep the word out there. And Barnes is right. It is Joe's fault. It's always Joe's fault. By the way, everybody, I'm going to keep this alive, but notice that we have Anton LaVey on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I was trying to hide my identity, and there you had to just expose me. So I'm looking forward to bumping heads with Robert Barnes tomorrow evening. We have our debate. Yeah, it's going to be fast. I'm really looking forward to it. So
we all are. We're all looking forward to it.
Nice.
So now let's see. We get on to the news. More news. Like important news where we have somebody qualified to talk to us about it. And great. While I am changing out browsers because I am behind a paywall on the freaking article, tell us about yourself, Mr. Joe.
My name is Joseph Neerman. I'm an attorney admitted to practice law in the state of New York, unlike Rudy Giuliani. Well, he's still technically admitted, but for not much longer. And I bill myself as the MAGA lawyer. And I believe that MAGA actually goes well beyond Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is the founder, but I think that the ideals behind MAGA are everlasting, and it was the start of a movement which is going to last long after Donald Trump fades from the earth. So, yeah, I'm a YouTube streamer, and I also produce videos when the mood's right. And I'm not monetized.
Do you like that MAGA goes past Trump, beyond Trump, or do you not like that? Because you could fall on either side depending on who you are.
I'm proposing that it must. I'm posing that it must. I'm not saying. My definition of MAGA is basically a belief in the fact that America must remain rooted in its core fundamental values and not lose sight of those fundamental values. And I think that America had lost sight of it for a long time, and that the ideals that Trump was promoting was, that our freedoms and our liberties are what makes us American. And I think that he was the first person in the history of America to unify people of all genders, colors, races, orientations into an understanding that American principles are the bedrock of our country, and that they also are everlasting, and it's the way to have the healthiest society possible. So that goes well beyond Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not going to live another 50 years, but ideally,
I wouldn't put it past him.
I mean, he's Teflon Don, so who knows?
Got the energy.
He'll plasticize himself or something.
Bottle it.
Right.
And he's a clean living guy. He's ironic though. He doesn't drink, smoke, or anything like that, but then he loves McDonald's. So his diet's probably not the cleanest living, but he doesn't intake substances like Alison.
He doesn't drink at all? Really? I didn't know that.
So his brother died about
wow.
cirrhosis of liver, I believe.
God, how are you president of the United States without drinking? I don't know. I couldn't get through it.
Adderall.
I was wondering if I had to was I supposed to bring a drink with me? Or
Yeah.
It's not forced. No.
I mean, we're not against if you have to pee in a bottle and drink out of it. We won't tell anyone.
There's that
remember
too.
for next time.
We won't judge either direction. If you want
Yeah.
to just drink water, civil, that's cool too. If you want to pee in a bottle and be a gamer, that's also fine. But we got you on here to talk about a creep and big news of the day.
Yes, Bill Cosby.
Yeah,
He's a free man.
yes, and I am not an educated lawyer type.
Mhm.
So I wanted to bring on an expert to say, is this legitimate or is it nuts? Is this the right decision?
I'll tell you, in my personal opinion, I think that you're correct that he's a creep, and that he probably has committed date rape on multiple occasions. And I also think the fact that he was freed today is probably a great thing for America as a country. Not because of the impact it has on him, but because the way that he ended up being convicted really should run afoul of anyone's sense of fairness as to, basic understandings of criminal justice. So, I mean, first of all, do you remember the name Bruce Castor? Does that ring a bell for you?
No.
What? Well,
No.
it should, because you heard about him 6 months ago. He was the lead defense counsel for Trump in his impeachment defense. He wrote great papers and then got up there and spoke and didn't sound nearly as effective.
The guy that went off on that CBSN anchor, remember that viral video?
No, Van Der Veen, I think is the one you're referring to. Van Der Veen was great. Van Der Veen was great. Bruce Castor went up there in opening arguments and bumbled around and basically followed up the prosecution's opening and looked terrible. Well, this guy, Bruce Castor, I assume it's the same one, was formerly the DA who was assigned to look into prosecuting Bill Cosby all the way back in 2005. And what he saw when he examined the case, the woman's name was Andrea Constant, and she claimed that she was a victim essentially of date rape. I don't have to go through the whole story there. And she came to them after a year, and they found inconsistencies in her testimony. There was no forensic evidence. They felt that she had waited a long time, because she waited all of a year to bring her allegations forward. And he felt that there was no way they can convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that he was guilty. So they said, okay, what are we going to do in order to help Andrea Constant get some justice? And what they came up with is they said, you know what? If we say we're not going to prosecute him, in that case, she can go after him civilly. And when she goes after him civilly, normally what would he say if she's trying to depose him or get questions or information out of him? Normally what he would do is he would plead the fifth. But if we go on record and we say we say we're never ever going to prosecute you, well, in that case, there's nothing for him to plead the fifth. He can't plead the fifth because he's not incriminating himself, because he's absolved from any sort of type of potential criminal liability. And that's
so
what
before we go on, I got this part, and I watched Viva's video as well. So I am boned up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with the decision that Castor made, that they might have had a weak case and, hey, at least she can get some cash or get some kind of justice?
Yeah, I think everyone has to agree that, because ultimately, when he was prosecuted, they had to create. They had the reason he was ultimately convicted was because they ended up doing two things. First of all, they relied on evidence that came from depositions that he made subsequent to the statement from the DA that he's not going to be prosecuting. Statements that he would not have made. statement of notes, he would have invoked his invoked the Fifth Amendment, the right to not incriminate yourself. He would have invoked that multiple times, presumably, during the civil trial, if he knew that there's a possibility that he's going to end up facing criminal charges. But since the DA said you're not going to face criminal charges, now he ends up testifying. And they used his own testimony against him at the trial. So
now
all
we're
this,
skipping it. I just wanted to clarify that.
but I also want to make one more point. That's important. That's important before you get to that. Even with that added information, the jury came back deadlocked. Even with that, they came back deadlocked. If they didn't have that, presumably they never would have been deadlocked. But even with that, they came back deadlocked. And then the judge said, well, I don't want you deadlocked. I want a hung jury here on a mistrial. So I'm going to allow the prosecution to bring forward 5 more women who are going to testify about how they were victims of similar type of date rape abuse from Cosby prior to Constant. And hopefully that'll help the jury figure out exactly what they should do. As if that's any chance of making it like now they're going to exonerate him. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's my point is that, yes, I think that he never would have been convicted in the first place unless he had been induced into testifying against his own best criminal justice interests.
Okay, so who's more evil, the new DA or the judge? Because that's pretty slimy.
It is pretty slimy. I think that, I mean, the DA is obviously pretty. I mean, this is look. I don't think you need an attorney way on that. I think Alison is probably a better judge of character on that than I am. So
Alison,
Who's worse between the two?
yeah.
I don't know how I became the expert in this one, but I will say the more I learn about judges, the more concerned I am to ever end up in a courtroom with a judge. I swear, I feel like that I've said this before, especially when Barnes is on, that I just had no clue. I mean, as a journalist, I used to go to courtrooms and I'd always be like, this person's not rubbing me right. They're acting a little bit judgy. I mean, no pun intended, like very high and mighty, and like, is it necessary to act like you're a queen on the throne? Like, is it really necessary? And the whole like, your honor, and yes, your honor, oh yes, your honor, whatever, I mean, all that stuff. I was like, what am I supposed to get on the floor prostrate in front of you? And like, I'd have to call ahead, can I please be in your courtroom? I should be able to be in your courtroom. I'm a journalist. This is a public courtroom. So I've always been kind of skeptical. And then when I get out of mainstream media, I start finding out all this stuff happening behind the scenes. I'm like, what in the heck is going on with judges? So I don't know. I'm going to just vote judge because right now I'm annoyed at them.
Well, I will point out to you, Alison, that actually that is, if you ever watch the show Law and Order, which I assume most people watch multiple times, one of the great things about the way they film that show and the really realistic elements behind it is that when you are in the courtroom, it is a completely different environment than when you're not in the courtroom. There's a certain sanctity and recognition that we are on stage and we are all in a certain role when we are in the courtroom, and there's an expectation that all the participants are going to live up to their responsibilities to fulfill that role and a certain sense of decorum at all times. And that goes out the window the second you walk out that back door and start talking with the judge. It's a completely different nature. I mean, you still need to show the judge respect, but it's not nearly the same sort of pomp and circumstance. So what you see in the courtroom, that you were feeling exactly what it's designed to feel. What you're supposed to be feeling. Yeah, you're supposed to feel unsettled. You're supposed to.
Okay. Oh, it's meant to be. Yeah, it's funny because Dan says Morrow has the typical lib disdain for hierarchy. Well, yeah, I do have a disdain for a little bit of hierarchy, that it feels like it's pretentious and unnecessary. I don't know if that's a liberal thing. It's just like
classical liberal. I don't know. I mean,
well, I just think it all seems very affected. And I think that more than anything, it's not like a liberal or conservative thing. It just seems fake. And, and it seems like power hungry and fake. Whenever a lot of times it just seems like an unnecessary, I don't know, just like, it just seems like you could garner respect and have the same kind of decorum without the, and maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe judges have to be jerks, because if they were nice, then all shit would break loose. I don't know, but
it always,
say that again.
As long as they were even with their jerkiness. And by the way, the whole decorum, though, remember we just played a video earlier that kind of throws the decorum thing out the window. So there's probably something in the middle.
Well, it does depend. It depends
and,
on it depends on the court you're in also. If you're in housing court, you're in civil court, you're in lower level courts, it's not nearly the same as when you go to like Supreme Court, or if you go into a federal court. In federal court, the judges are complete jerks because they look at you and they're like, look, I was assigned to this position by President Clinton. Why am I wasting my time talking with you? And they sit in these marble rooms. I've been this. You always hear about the Southern District of New York. You go into any courtroom there. There are these beautiful marble rooms with ceilings that are 25 feet high and wood paneling all over.
Amazing.
And the judge sits like 25 feet back from on this high throne up there, and basically looking down at you like you are a loathsome worm.
It's so stupid. Bring back the town square and the gallows, man. I'm just bring back. Let's park some horses there and, let the people in, in the back screaming. I want to see it like what used to be in the, 1700s or something. I don't know. Maybe they are already there with the courtrooms. But yeah, federal court always used to drive me crazy because as a TV reporter, we could never bring cameras in there. And I never understood that rule because it sucked for us because we had no video ever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's another rule. The FBI, they don't have to record their sessions. I've had a couple agents on talking about that, which I've always found suspect. I like Canada in the sense that everything is automatically on video and automatically recorded if they're in a room and they're talking to a cop. It's just automatic.
I will tell you one thing very cool, which surprised the hell out of me when you're talking about the pomp and circumstance of a courtroom. I never argued in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, but Ron Coleman did, and he told me the very cool thing is that it's the exact opposite of what I just described. You are sitting around a table with your 9 justices. He's like, I could have reached out and like grabbed Ruth Bader Ginsburg if I wanted to,
really,
and shook her alive. Yeah, and it's the exact opposite. Yeah, it's the exact opposite of what you anticipate. Like the highest court in the land is actually, they don't need to rely on that feeling of authority that's imposed upon you because you know where you are. It's like, okay, this is the big time.
I will say, like, that is for me probably one of my most my highest values and one of my most sensitive. I don't want to call it a trigger because it sounds so woke, but something I'm very, very sensitive to is affect. Just people faking things, and I can't stand it. Yeah, and so it's like I pick up on it very quickly, and especially people with affect in power. That really it just makes my skin crawl, and I just picked up on a lot of that in courtrooms.
And rightfully so, and I agree with you.
To sum this one up, I was talking to my wife earlier, and my view of it is take the name Bill Cosby out of it, and really the case and the decision is about us, about people, about fairness of the process. It has nothing to do with him as a person. He is nothing more than a placeholder in a case to argue over. Mm-hmm. But the ultimate result is you can't let this happen to people. Is that a fair view of it?
Definitely. I think that Cosby had been the face of the Me Too movement, and I still think he belongs as the face of the Me Too movement because I'm fairly confident that he must have done this multiple times. At the same time, I think there's something honorable about having a judicial system which says, hey, even if in our gut we really kind of know that this guy did what he did, we're going to honor the system. And this guy, the way they dealt with him was completely... It was shocking to basic morals as to how it is you go about convicting someone. So,
fair enough. And I guess there is the minor note that the guy is mostly blind, pathetically old, can barely get around, and is definitely, I feel, not a threat to society any longer. Other than what he could do with a paycheck, with a checkbook, and he could do that whether he's behind bars or not. So.
But if Project Veritas wants to chase after him in the dark, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. Chase Bill Cosby. That's perfect. You're punching up. All right. Next case. Joe, are you ready? I want to talk about this. Alison Mack. Saw a little bit of pushback on it. people are pretty surprised. I think Keith Raniere, I want to say 121 years, could be 111. It doesn't really matter. When you get beyond a century, to me, that's like forever time. She got 3 years. I have, and I should probably address it, I have spoken to Nikki Klein multiple times. Nikki Klein was supposed to come on the show with myself and Robert Barnes, or me and Robert Barnes. I don't know if that's right. Some grammar Nazi is going to get on me and say, it's not myself. Anyway.
It's me.
Robert Barnes and me, we're going to.
No, that's Robert Barnes and I.
She ultimately was not able to do it in scheduling, and we just have never been able to work it out. And I have a feeling it probably will never work out. Nikki Klein is Alison Mack's wife.
Oh.
And they are in divorce proceedings. I don't know if it's already been finished or not. Nikki Klein is definitely not on the anti-Keith Raniere side. She is talking about prosecutorial misconduct and is looking at prison reform and things like that. And in fairness, I do think that it is a cult. I think that she was a member of the cult. And I think that the prosecutor could have committed misconduct. All things could be true at the same time, as we just saw with Bill Cosby. We think that he's a monster. We think he did many bad acts. And we know the prosecutor did some bad things too. All things could be true. So I'm wondering, and again, this is all aside, I'm wondering if the 3-year deal of Alison Mack cooperating with the prosecution might have been a factor in the divorce. But how is it she only got 3 years and Keith got major time when Alison was literally, I mean, she was kind of his top lieutenant. She was an actress, had some fame, helped recruit people. She was definitely up there.
A role model for every Allison M out there. That's what she was. So
I don't trust any Allison with 2 L's.
Is that what it is?
It was killing me.
Once again, overcompensating. It's overcompensating. You have to put a second L in there.
Barnes fixed it. Barnes fixed it in the chat.
I saw that. I love it. Allison with 2 L's is Allison. Okay.
I like it.
Let's get that clear.
I never thought of that before, but I think you're actually right. So, I mean, if you want my opinion on this, it's disgusting. It's awful. This woman lured women towards being tortured and brought into a brainwashing cult. And the level of brainwashing is so overpowering that, as you point out, to this day, they haven't been under his influence for years. And they're still swearing by him, saying, no, it wasn't a cult. He was looking out for our betterment and for our health. They had a doctor who was helping them, the one who was doing the branding of the different victims there. And she's like, no, we were helping people. That's her position. I mean, that's a level of brainwashing, which you have to say, wow, props to you. I don't know how you were that effective that years later, when they're not under your control, they still don't think they were in a cult. Many of them still feel that there was nothing wrong with it. And honestly, let's face facts. If you're Alison Mack, the chances are very high that you're still believe in the cult, but you need to say X, Y, Z if you don't want to get an extended period of, extended sentence. And I think that 3 years, there's 2 convictions, both of them, each of them 36 months, but served concurrently. So even though it could have been, a total of 6 years, 72 months, she ended up getting basically 3 years. And with probation, she theoretically could be out like in a year and a half or 2 years.
Also, answer one question. She reports to prison on September 29th, and I see that happening all the time. I'm like, wait a minute. I expect people to be dragged ass out of the courtroom and put away. I mean, didn't you just say you're guilty? What is up with that? Okay, well, go ahead and report on such and such date. Help me understand.
So, I mean, she was under house arrest for a considerable period of time, and she was actually seeking that her entire prison sentence would be under house arrest. So I think in this particular circumstance, usually, and look, I'm not a criminal defense attorney. I do contractual law. But I will tell you that I think in a circumstance like this, where they think that there's a possibility that the court might feel that house arrest would be sufficient for the entire time. They're not going to. That it would make sense to say we're not going to put her in prison when ultimately she might only really be obligated to ever have house arrest. So I think that that's part of the reason she got this. She got this deal. She also supposedly, according to the DA, did considerable work in helping them put away Keith Raniere for a century. And she got recordings of the ceremonies that they had, which were obviously very influential in getting those extended convictions. So I think the whole system stinks. I understand why it is that she got such a short period of time. I think she's an evil, vile woman, and I think that she destroyed the lives of dozens of women. But at the same time, if you think to yourself, okay, without her help, we might not have gotten any of them. So in that case, you can, you reluctantly accept that this is the smaller fish that we have to sort of swallow and just, and sort of, I don't know, I guess shiver in disgust that we have to be so gentle with her. But that's the reality if you want to make sure that you're getting conviction against some of the most evil people out there. I mean, do you disagree with that logic? I mean, it sucks.
No, I mean, I do to a point. And again, I wonder, there could have been misconduct. There could be a lot of things. There's other people who were also first level DOS. They're walking around, never got charged at all. Why? I mean, there are a lot of questions. I do think it was a cult. And I don't know. I'm the whole thing is obviously a very sordid, horrible mess. I have cult experts on the show, and we talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured that she was a snitch, and so she got off, and that's pretty common. Plus, no offense, I think being a semi-famous female helped her a little bit.
Yeah, people talk about white privilege, but pretty privilege and fame privilege are like way more powerful than almost any other privilege you can get. I mean, American privilege, just living in America, that's a real privilege unto itself. But after American privilege, probably pretty privilege and fame privilege are the two most powerful ones. Fame/wealth privilege. Those are kind of similar.
Perfect. Now, on that note, we've got a double. I'm going to cover it. This is what got me into the whole thing and got me in with Nikki Klein, all that. Scott Adams is kind of, a big supporter of Nikki Klein and all of that. And Scott is very into, I'm a trained hypnotist. Believe me, as often as Ben Shapiro says he has a doctor for a wife, Scott Adams says he's a trained hypnotist. There's a definite parallel there. But anyway, for some reason, and I have I actually made a video about Scott Adams saying you can't be hypnotized to do something against your something you wouldn't naturally do. I got top hypnotists in the world because I know them to say no, that's bullshit. Yes, you can. And he did actually he did answer it. But anyway, that is, I guess, one of the bigger mysteries because I do like Scott Adams. So it sounds like I'm trashing him completely, but I think he's a fascinating, brilliant guy, and maybe this is just a blind spot, kind of like him working with audio on a live stream. So that does make me feel a little bit better. Anyway.
Well, did you see what Barnes wrote? Scott Adams sees it as criminalizing persuasion. So maybe he's sensitive to that.
Okay.
Like a lot of one of the things
some persuasion should be criminalized, though. In fairness, some of it should be, and I'm going to point out on a much smaller scale.
Whoa! Criminalizing. If it really is just persuasion, in criminalizing persuasion, what is wrong? On what basis are you criminalizing persuasion?
I don't know, but if that's the case, then McDonald's and Burger King should be criminals.
All right, let me go with my.
If there's no mind manipulation. If there's no manipulation, but like someone is charismatic and they're very persuasive, and they don't take advantage of that to, let's say, and I guess maybe that's where the line is drawn, is like if someone takes advantage of that, and I think a lot of them, people are saying that he's persuasive. They're ignoring the fact that They took active steps to make sure that they would keep people in line, where they made them, sign affidavits that they had been abused by their father and take, compromising pictures and get them to them.
Built blackmail books on other people.
If you're really persuasive and you're really persuasive, you don't feel like, hey, let me have blackmail as a backup plan here. You don't need it because people are just going to go along with what you're saying. So I don't know if it's complete persuasion when he's like, what more dirt can we get on them to make sure we keep them here?
Here we go. Well, let me get my example. Anyway, fraud is persuasion. Good point. Yes. And a good example is we're thinking grand scale cult. Let's go really, really simple and low level. What about the abusive spouse or abusive partner who gaslights the one with whom they live? What about that person? That's persuasion. That's manipulation. That is
you're going to have to criminalize, if that's the case, then 90% of marriages should probably all be in jail.
Okay, well, what, Lynn? I guess we should talk about that.
No, I'm just saying. Look, hey, I have a graduate degree with the specialization in psychology and counseling. I used to hang out. That's what I did. And I was a drug counselor. But I'm just saying that,
not illegal.
Have you listened to the average couple sit down and talk with each other? One time I remember being out on some tour and I was like, what if Lynn ever talked to me like that? But I listened to people. That's what I did for a living. I was a journalist too, right? I listened to people for a living, thousands of people over my lifetime. The average person is manipulating people all the time. I just think that about people. I don't know if that makes me a pessimist, but I think that's how most people are.
It makes you a cynic, not a pessimist, if anything.
I'm definitely a cynic. That's for sure.
But I mean, look, we need to sort of define certain boundaries here. So persuasion, which involves lying to persuade, that's what fraud is, and that's not persuasion. That's just deceiving someone into doing what you want. So that's not persuasion. That's really just tricking someone because you have knowledge that they don't have. So that's what makes
persuasion may be a tool. So, just like carrying a screwdriver is not in of itself something illegal. But if it's part of your burglary kit and you use it to break open a window, then now it's a burglary tool. And you can be charged for having that as a burglary tool, correct?
Okay, but any skill, yes, but any skill like a tool is something that could be used for good, could be used for bad, or could be used innocuously.
That's where I'm going. Is that if that is an element of it, then you could possibly address that. The same way as somebody having a rape kit.
But it's not the screwdriver that makes the crime. It's not the screwdriver that makes the crime. It's what you're doing with the screwdriver. It's not the fact that, and it's also not being persuasive. Being persuasive is not the crime. It's the lying. Right. It's the lying or the blackmailing or basically threatening someone, if not blackmailing, threatening them that hey, if you want to get your allowance, saying, abusive husband saying to his wife, if you want to get your allowance next week, in that case, you're going to do X, Y, Z for me. So that's, that's a form of abuse, which,
this is what you call a heated agreement.
On that note, it's not the diaper that makes the poop. It's not the diaper that makes the poop. You
got a babysitter, and Joe has his own show he's got to run, and everybody is pissed off and late.
I am. I didn't even realize it's 10:07. I've been having such a great time with you guys. Yeah, I do start my stream at 10 o'clock.
It's the drinking. It's the drinking. That's why we do it. We're like a casino. We don't want you to know what time it is.
Good Lawgic. You guys come check over there.
Jump on over. Go on over.
I'm going to start my stream up in the next 30 seconds.
And check out Joe. You'll see Joe on this channel again tomorrow. Everybody check that out. That's after Akira the Don, who nobody heard of, and you all should feel ashamed of yourselves because he's amazing. So at least tune in and learn about Akira the Don. And Alison is everywhere. AlisonMorrow.locals.com, Unstructured.locals.com, GoodLogic.locals.com. Everybody is on Locals, so everybody should be there.
Yeah, tomorrow. When's your interview? When do you guys have your debate?
8 o'clock.
Tomorrow, 8 o'clock.
PM?
Yes.
What? No lawyer wakes up before 9.
My interview's at 8 a.m. Are you kidding me? By 8 p.m.
You're a journalist.
My little jammies ready for bed. I don't. 8 p.m. is past my bedtime.
5 p.m. your time, Allison. 5
okay, well, I'll watch. Well, I'm just saying, if somebody, Jesus could come back and be like, I'll do a live stream with you at 8 p.m. and I'd be like, I'm sorry, dude. It's too late.
5 p.m.
Take care.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
And on this note, it's time to go. Everybody, thank you so
Thank
much. And we're
you.
going to cut
Thank
out
you.
with an outro by Tape Damage.